Hello everybody, I'm Gary from Lantana Removal Queensland, 0449 986 880. We eradicate Lantana from Narangba, operate from Narangba on the north side of Brisbane, and we travel all over eradicating it, been doing it for 40 years. Now with Lantana, the biggest thing that you got to understand about Lantana is don't let it get started on your property, okay? If you have any patches show up, clean them out immediately. You know, the government says that the real cost of Lantana is in the rehabilitation process after you let it get going, okay? It's interesting then that they leave it grow all over the sides of the roads and all over the watercourses and places like that, when they understand that the biggest thing is, it's not hard to kill it, it's not hard to deal with it, just get in early and get it out of there and stop it from growing, okay? Best way to handle a lot of things, and I go against their methods or their ideas, when you have I'd rather take the whole lot of the Lantana in one hit, okay? It's out of there, it's done, you pay for it once, okay? Whatever the cost is, you pay for it once and it's gone. A lot of the Lantana infestations that we see are really big and strong, healthy infestations, so if you're not taking enough material out, the material's actually growing faster than what you're actually doing any work on it. So you're not even, well, actually when you look at it, isn't that the real key to this? You have to be meeting the growth rate of the material, or else you're going backwards, okay? It's consuming more of your land than what you're dealing with. So that's the main reason why I say I'd much rather get in there, remove the whole lot, pay the cost once, because it's only costing you that cost, okay? Where you go at it, like they say, just do little patches, little patches, little patches, it's still growing and infesting more land, okay? So, you might have had $100,000 infestation, just picking a figure, round figures. By the time you finish with it over a 10-year process and just doing little bits and pieces, it ends up costing you $200,000, okay? Because it kept growing the whole time. Now, while it's growing, it's damaging more of the resource that you need to rehabilitate the system. That's the big reason why I so am against poisons, is because a lot of the damage to the mycorrhizal fungi subsoil system destroys all of the plants, and they're the plants that you need to outcompete the Lantana. So all of those processes are anti-productive. The same with fire. Fire destroys so much of the subsoil life and all of the other ecology it damages, so Lantana keeps coming back faster and faster each time, and stronger. So it lives underground more than it lives above the ground in that stuff, so its resources are still there, so it beats all the other vegetation back and gets stronger. This has been going on in the national parks forever. They've been doing that for over 100 years. That's the system, and they lose the battle. It's pouring out of those areas worse than it ever has. So if they were doing any good, they would be winning the battle, but it's the opposite. So why the government doesn't suddenly go, actually you're right, we're still fighting the same battle we always were, well, you're not succeeding, and you just doubled the infestation rates in 10 years. So in that 10-year period you've doubled it. So tells you in the next 5 you're going to have a world of hurt, because the place they're letting it grow is even worse. And that's why I say to you, look, you can't control your neighbours. If your neighbours still have it growing, at least if you cut your buffer to your fence line, you can protect and see anything coming in across that fence line and in across that land, and you can protect that, and you can do it easily. You've got nearly 12 months from when the seeds germinate to when the plant is viable to then reproduce. That window of opportunity is the one that we need to be operating with Lantana with. If we take all of those materials, all of those new infestations, all of those new plants, and we nip them in the bud at that 12-month cycle, we didn't have any increase in that plants, okay? It's when we allow them, like the government says, to propagate and then reseed and germinate downstream, and all those things continue to expand that problem. So on a local level, if you keep them out of your waterways around your home, you keep them off your property boundaries, you can't control what the next door neighbour does. Until they have enough of their land consumed, then they will then pay the price for that negligence, for that incompetence, for that breaking the law. Somewhere along the line, it'd be interesting to see people hold the government and the council's main roads, national parks, hold all those guys responsible for the damages on your property. But at the very least, get in there, physically remove the plants, okay? And anything that shows up, wait for a nice rainy day, or I even, in a small scale environment, water the area nice and wet so it's nice and loose, and then take the plant out, okay? Listen, one of the things that I would say to you as a personal tip, it's a hell of a lot of work, and people get caught up in digging their whole yard up, trying to take all of the roots to deal with that plant, okay? As a professional, I would remove the plant, and whatever's left there, don't worry about it, okay? If there's enough there to reshoot, it'll reshoot, you'll see it, then you'll go in and wait for a nice rainy day, and I enjoy it because it's just like taking my country back. And I go in there and I pull them out, and I don't grab the plant and just rip it out of the ground, jiggle it and bounce it until it starts to come, and then take the whole plant as it does, because otherwise you snap the plant off again. There's no real downside because he'll only shoot that little bit off that. Each time you've removed that root mass, right, you've grossly affected its ability to reshoot. So very soon, in the way I do my operations, I get them in the first time because I know how to do it and I know what I'm doing, and then that's the end of that. So you pay for the eradication once and a quick mop up, and most people prefer to do the mop up themselves and save their money for themselves, and they just go through and they mop it up themselves. That next time they flush, if anything is left subsoil, it has no reserves left to reshoot from that. So you got him in that 2 passes. Okay, and we get 98-99% in that first pass. So there's just a tiny thing. You might have 1 or 2 plants, half a dozen plants over a 3-acre property, something like that, and they won't shoot from that again. So you've beaten the problem, and then you can just defend your perimeter, and just walk your property. Just go around while you're fit and able. Go around your property and pick the heads off these guys when you see them if they do show up. Because that's where you're often being infested. You're being infested from outside into your property. We've got the council have beautiful flourishes of lantana all along the sides of the roads above us. I just patrol that perimeter and, nothing gets past there then. I've got 12 months to get that plant if something came in there. So you see, there's no real urgency, there's no real fear, but the government wants to have you going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's a terrible thing, oh, I'm going to lose my whole property to this stuff. And yes, if you let it get really growing and it's a real problem, you have problems. But if you get in early, it's nothing to kill lantana. That's why this whole business of this fear mongering that they go on with is absolutely ridiculous to the real process. But you should be able to properly eradicate the material. These anti-clearing laws really mess up that ability to be able to keep weeds off your property, and where weeds are already out of control. So don't go buying properties that have massive infestations, even big infest. Don't do it. You don't need 10 years or 20 years of heartache of trying to beat that material. And if you work all week and you've only got the weekends to do, there are that many infestations that we see that these people are losing the battle because the material's growing. They have 1 weekend off, and whatever they were in front, they've slid back. It's regrown that much. Mount Glorious, perfect example of it. The national parks up there are that infested and that full of it, and the water to those plants, because it's a high rainfall area with a lot of rainforest, just gets them a ton of rain, and it just keeps growing faster than the person can do anything with in a small area. Like in an area the size of a house, the person with all of their friends on the weekends can't keep up with the growth rate. And that's what you're faced with. So, that's my free tip to you, to say, listen, take the whole plant out. Don't get too precious. Naturally, I would like to get all the root system with it, or most of the root system. But don't dig up all the yard to get that root system. It's a waste of time. It takes you too long to get that. All right? Get that material and get it out of there. Don't poison the stump. When you poison that into the mycorrhizal fungi subsoil life, you kill every single thing subsoil. And subsoil is what grows our vegetation. So these businesses with grasses and getting water back into the ground is so important. You go down the landcare path and you they call it slash and paint, and you just destroy. There's places in the back of Mount Cootha where those programs have gone through, and it's an absolutely nuked landscape. Nothing has come back except the vine groups. The vine groups are coming back. There's no soil life at all stabilizing the actual ground levels through those watercourses. This is a disaster, and that's accepted as being something that the Brisbane City Council support. It's a disaster, you know, but that's what we have. That's the type of thing that we have in those areas, and trying to get people to understand that take responsibility for your property and defending it, because it's going to cost you money when you sell your property. And that's one of the big things in the future, as these infestations take over our local suburbs like Sanford and like Mount Glorious and all of the other ones, Cedar Creek, and right through Dayborough and out through Mount Mee. You know, all of these ecosystems are being destroyed down the sides of the roads and the council infestations, pouring into those properties, or pouring so far down that mountainside into new properties, into other properties, and continuing this onslaught of this material escalating. And until we hold them accountable, because they're breaking the law, right? Until you keep taking it to them saying that's breaking the law, you can't be releasing it to the environment. If you make them clean up outside of your property, that's good. That's a start. But there are places along Mount Mee where you look over those vertical drop-offs down those things, and then not much off vertical, and that material's just pouring into those properties below. And those people have no, well, they should be going to the council and saying, mate, this is your stuff. I want the damages for that coming down that face there. You'd have to abseil down that mountain, and this is why I get so horrifically upset when I drive through these places, because the first thing I think of, and I'm an expert at getting into steep terrain, what it's going to cost to get that material out of that area, and it should never have been allowed to get in there. And it's only because the state government has no plans or no operational what's the names for this, and they won't force the councils to. So believe me, clean your properties off early, because then at least you've got that buffer. You can at least protect what is yours. You know, I keep hearing from people, I can't afford a $30,000 cleanup bill on my property. I've already lost 30 acres of my property to it. Well, what does the future hold for you? You've already lost 30 acres of your property. You've only got 50 acres, and you're getting older. Some of these people are in their 60s, and they're right, they can't get around the property and deal with it. But that's what the council's done to them. It's come off the road reserve. They're never going to put a road in there, but they don't want to clean it out. And the main roads have caused that problem as well, because both of them have caused it. So at what point are we going to start saying, well, geez, you know, there's a little old lady that cannot afford to deal with that problem, and it's going to eat the whole property. And then when she goes to a nursing home or something else later on, the property's worth half of its value or less. We are at a turning point where we're going to have properties that are worthless. It actually costs more to clean them out and clean them up than what the property actually is worth. And it's bad when it's 50%, but you wait till we have properties that are at 100%. Then you're going to hear people really crying, you know. And we're not far away from where those things are, all through Dayborough, Mount Mee, all out through those areas. So we need to start getting very serious about demanding that Scott Morrison starts to stand up for our country and our ecology, because he has no policies in it. For the whole time he's been in office, I've been writing to him, and before that I was writing to Malcolm Turnbull. They have no policies on ecology or on our environment or defending our environment, none at all. They have not come forward with any questions or any operational systems on dealing with this on the scale it is. They just pretend it doesn't exist, and soon enough it'll consume them, I hope. That's what my hope is, that the weeds end up consuming these weeds, and we move on to somebody who actually cares about the environment and the ecology. And the Green parties are no better. People just vote for them to make themselves feel good, to be angry at the mainstream parties. We need to stop voting on those people. We need to start putting people into political parties that actually have an agenda to get some of this work done. Because at the moment, the Greens are not those people. They are completely false. They do not have a policy in this. They've never contacted us to map out what should be done, or how it should be done, or what should be done, or the levels of these things. So look, I'm Gary. I'm from Lantana Removal, Queensland. My son and I do the work out of Narangba here, on the north side of Brisbane. We go everywhere and we work on this material. While it's not cheap to eradicate Lantana, it's absolutely necessary, because they're not eradicating it. It's a cancer absolutely devouring your property, and you cannot turn your back on it and pretend it's going to be a good day, because you're losing your asset, and sooner or later it's going to be to the point that you can't get anything for your properties, or it's worth half of what it was. And there's not many people can afford that loss in their sole asset, because many people, that's what it is. So get after it, whether you get out there every weekend and do it, or you hire us to take care of it and eradicate it properly. It's up to you, but please don't pretend it doesn't exist, because the consequences are what we suffer with the state, federal and local councils, and it's going to have a massive cost, and we're paying it. Our children are paying it. Our farmers are paying it. We're going to pay this in trying to feed our people in the very near future. So thank you for joining me. Check us out on Facebook. Please give to our campaign to help support educating people and getting this information out there, because the government won't support any of this information to get to the people, and yet it's the people who have to actually hear it. Because when you drive through Sanford, and you drive through Mount Mee, and you drive through Daybra, and you drive through from Petrie out to there, you understand. Drive over into Dundas and have a look at that garbage. Have a look at the animals being purposely put on that material and going to die because of that, because there's no moral conduct. Thank you very much for stopping in. 0449 986 880. Bye bye.